Hey everyone, welcome to The Next Level, a podcast from the Team Performance Institute. Here we provide actionable insights on modern leadership and team development, driving higher levels of organizational performance and life empowerment. I'm your host, John Sanchez. Join me and my team as we take you on the journey to the next level. Hey everybody, welcome to The Next Level. I am proud to bring up to you a great member of our team, Emily King Grandinetta. Emily, welcome.
Thank you.
I mean, just seeing your face makes me happy, and I'm glad I get to share a bit of your story with everybody that is out there listening. Emily, when I met her, she came in at Team Performance Institute, applied for a job that she was way overqualified for. She came in, I met her, she flew in from, at that point, you're living in the DC area, and she flies in and she applies for a job. I was like, okay, you're amazing, and you can't have the job because you're too qualified. But I could certainly bring you in as a coach. And Emily is our one of the highest credited coaches we have. She's a master certified coach to the International Coaching Federation. She brings just a wealth of knowledge to our coaching platform. And everybody's got deeper parts of their story. Emily, at that point, had her first book out, which is Field Tested. And if you're watching this, on our YouTube channel, Field Tested by Emily King. This is prior to meeting her awesome husband, Rich Grandinetta. So now it's Emily King Grandinetta. But Field Tested, I tell you, I wish that every corporation had this book. When I got out of the military and I was serving, and I was working at a great bank, PNC. We were working on setting up our employee business resource groups to hire veterans, bring veterans in. This is kind of the playbook for that. This helps out with corporations making. This came out around 2010. Am I right?
11. Yeah.
Okay, 2011. And it's the playbook to all the corporations, as many of you may recall, about a decade after 9/11, was like, how do we help veterans make this transition? Of note and really of importance of why we're doing this podcast today is there's a new book out there that's going to be dropping on Veterans Day this year called At Ease. And we get to dig into that with Emily a little bit, talk about the book, talk about how it came about. And that's got a whole different spin to it. And that's really helping with the idea of transition, helping the veteran themselves. And I got to tell you, being a fan of Emily is fun, but being a fan of the book is really wild, because I wish, as I've been out for over 20 years now, wow, that's crazy. I'm always in transition. I continue to feel like I'm in transition. I'm a military veteran, and transition is a process that we go through. I've been lucky enough to have a good transition, to help people through transition, but it was really difficult. It was difficult for me, even coming out from the Naval Academy, being a Navy SEAL, being an officer. I had my college degree. I had all those things. I really had to find my new tribe, and it took me a long time. And I'm proud to say that Emily's part of that tribe, and she is my people. So Emily, again, it's just so good to see your face. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here. I'm a big fan of this podcast, so to be on it is pretty cool.
Well, you're the star of the show. Let's start with you. How did you do? What? How did you get into this? Let's start there. Like you're not a veteran. Was this a passion of yours that you just decided to follow? How did it start?
I feel like it was a calling because it just came. It was so random. I was like a behavioral scientist working for a big consulting firm. This was an undisclosed number of years ago, way before 9/11, way before all that, way before Field Tested, and I was supporting the part of the company that supported the Department of Defense. And the top guy there, a senior partner, called me in one day and he said, "We got a problem and you need to figure it out. We can't keep these. We're spending a lot of time and money with these strategic hires of military officers. We need them because they can sell back into their old organization, into their organizations. And they're not making it. They're not cutting it. They're failing. And we need to figure this out." And so I did a study, an organization development study of what was happening. And this was like, I want to say maybe 2004 or something. And so at the time it was pretty interesting to find out that, oh, wow, the culture is really different. So you hire an officer for his or her leadership skills, and they come in and they have those skills and they have a command and control style, and you weren't expecting that.
Yeah.
And that
Right.
doesn't go with your culture. And so, yeah, it looks so to the people that they're leading in a civilian organization, it didn't feel like leadership. It felt awful. And
Yeah.
that was the reason why they were not demonstrating leadership. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
working with a full bird colonel who his first performance assessment, he got dinged on lack of leadership. And it was like, how
Oh,
can this be?
yeah.
I mean, he was
That's got to
distraught.
be. Oh, that would be gutting.
Oh my
Absolutely
God.
gutting. Right.
Oh my God. Yeah. So it was really kind of I mean, I was intrigued, by the behavioral science aspect of it, the cultural aspect, but I was really moved personally by this injustice. Like, what is wrong here? This can't be. This guy left his career at the top, left the military at the top of his career.
Yeah.
He got this amazing offer. And then basically he was just dropped in to try to figure it out. And it's just two different worlds. So that's where it started. And then it was a
great.
full-on passion for me. Full on.
That's great. So thank you to whoever it was that walked into your office and said, I need you to figure this problem out. Emily has her master's in applied behavioral science, and and then obviously just took this on as a program as a civilian. And sometimes I often think like civilians are actually the real like lifeblood to helping with veteran transition, because passion just becomes so, like, veterans, they go through it, they see things differently. But from the civilian side, you see things like a little bit more holistically, because you haven't had that experience of going through a boot camp or military indoctrination, all that stuff. You're really dealing with the out product that comes out. It's funny. I think about, you said it kind of feels awful. Like it feels awful for both the organization and the veteran. I went through a similar experience. And I don't know if I'm embarrassed or proud to talk about it now, but like when I first started in corporate leadership, I got my performance review and it was really not good. And it wasn't necessarily about leadership, but it was more about engagement, and my team was not engaged with me. And I was really like torn about, really, really torn about. I think I skipped a day of work. That's how bad it was. I didn't want to go to work the next day because I was so embarrassed that my military leadership didn't translate into my corporate leadership. Emily, tell me a little bit about like some of the key findings you had going back to 2004 and 5 when you were working on field tested. Like, what were some of the key things that you came up with or saw that were aha moments for you?
There were three there were a lot of really cool things that came out of those early studies, and then the one that I did at Johns Hopkins for my master's thesis. One was that really the transition and what makes it difficult, because John, you are in great company in having a difficult, transition experience there. Yesterday I had someone describing it as, awful and terrible. They're not all that way, but they're harder than it has to be. And that's why the book is at ease and, but in any case, to answer your question, so the main things that people aren't prepared for when they leave service, military service, is the loss of identity. As soon as you take off the uniform, it's like, wow. So we do, like, in the course that we're doing accelerated military transition, we do a lot around that identity piece. Second piece is loss of community. You're working side by side with parents whose kids, your kids play, it's all intertwined in the military. So loss of community. And then the drastic change in culture. Those are the three pain points. I mean, there are a lot of pain points, but those are the three big categories. Some of the other interesting things I found was that there's a real gap. I found what I discovered in the work that I was doing back then was that You know, anytime anybody starts something new, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. You think you know what you think you know, and you're not, you have no questions because you think you know.
Right.
So, and when you think you know, you don't want to hear someone telling you that, no, you don't know.
Right. Right.
I mean, this is true of most of us, right? It's not
Yeah,
just
that's
veterans,
true.
but it's
Yeah.
really true of this military transition.
And especially like add a little bit of fire on, I mean, a little bit of gas on the fire there would be military veterans or most military folks were learned, go figure it out. Like
Yes.
you think, you know, if you don't know, then it's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to go, you know, they teach you initiative. They teach you all these great things, by the way. These are great soft skills that, man, you know, if we could help just one military veteran make a transition or one corporation through this podcast, see that there's a better way to hiring or helping veterans. I know Eddie's more about helping veterans with the transition, and we'll get into that. But like, if we just help a little bit with that, but yeah, the military mindset is go figure it out, because you know it's on you to do all that stuff, and it's weakness to say I need help.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's funny because I remember it was a hard sell for that reason. It was a hard sell when I was trying to help. First of all, I'm not a veteran. And, you know, I'm not in that world. They didn't know me or trust me. And then they didn't think that they had anything that they needed to learn. And I never will forget a conversation I had with a really senior officer who was basically said, who are you to be telling us about anything about the military?
Yeah.
And I
How
said,
did you
well, is there anything
that?
Is there anything that you need me to tell you about the military at your level? Is there anything anybody could tell you about the military? No. Okay, well, is there anything that you might like to know about this corporation that is courting you right now? Oh,
Yes.
right. So that was kind of my thing, was I like, no, I'm not a veteran, and that is actually going to be helpful here.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Lost identity, lost community, change in culture. I mean, that you couldn't have hit it like, you know, stronger on the nail. I think for me, the hardest was probably the loss of community, because I, you know, came from the teams. Talk to me about some of the findings that you've had, or some of the stories that you had around some of the veterans you got to meet and help them with transition.
Oh, so many. It's been such a privilege and just a gift to me to be able to do this work. I mean, I, you know, remember very vividly one person, one guy, I think he was a lieutenant colonel, who was about to be fired, and they were like, well, Emily, you're our last chance before.
Oh no, you're like damage control.
Right, exactly. Sorry, there goes my dog.
I love it.
And so I came in, and when I met with him, and he was very on the defense with me, I can't blame him. He knew he was on the ropes, but it didn't take long for me to see, as a coach, you know, this guy is like terrified.
Yeah.
He is backed into a corner, and he's coming out like way aggressive, because that's what he, you know, he's digging into the military way, you know,
right.
rather than digging himself out of the military way.
Right.
And so, you know, he was a real success story, because we got him in great shape, and he was totally reinstated himself professionally. But a lot of it was just recognizing there are actually a lot of things happening here. One is the separation from service. You know, going to your training, signing all the documents, and giving everything back and walking away is not what I mean when I say separating from service.
Yeah.
I mean the identity and the community, and you're going into a world where you literally have no clue who anybody is, especially relative to you. You don't know who you are relative to anybody, because nobody's wearing a uniform.
Yeah.
And nobody has their, you know, so helping him work through some of the emotional stuff around that separation, even just becoming aware of what he was feeling he was missing. And then, so that's challenge one. Challenge two is, okay, now you're here in this crazy place where nothing makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it was it was like that. And then the third piece was, okay, day to day communications and interactions. I'm coaching you on, okay, what you just said to me, here's how that landed. Let's try it a different way. You know, and because we were able to, I was able to build trust with him very quickly. He made very quick progress.
Yeah. Boy, so many veterans could use that type of training. I definitely could have. And you know, what you think lands doesn't, or what you were taught in the military doesn't land the same way in the civilian world. Tell me a little bit about your course. Like, what are you training in your course? You have a course called Accelerated Military Transition. Talk to me a little bit about what that course is like.
Thanks for asking. I mean, I'm so excited about the book, and I'm so excited about the course. The course is kind of like, okay, we're going to coach you through this. This is a coaching approach. It's everything I've learned over 20 years of working with service members and veterans, and it's like best of. And we're working on developing some superpowers. Self-awareness, self-coaching, some other stuff, because, you know, there are any number of books and people who can talk to you about how to get your resume in order, or how to network, or all those things, how to do a job search. That's not, I mean, yes, that's important. That's like the tactical piece. The strategic piece of military transition is getting yourself into what I call condition for transition. Okay.
Tell me about that.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, is we're building real deep skills around self-awareness, self-coaching, how to leverage your community, your, you know, support from others. And then within each of those areas, a ton of practical tools.
Yeah.
And they, you know, the course has a lot of interactive activities, a lot of application. Okay, here's a concept and here's what it means. Now you go apply it to yourself.
Yeah.
And so the e-learning course is, you know, very interactive that way, but it's self-study. The higher impact course that includes instructor-led and coaching, that's where we're really like, okay, let's really dig in.
Yeah.
And we're gonna drive some change here.
Yeah.
So it's just empowering. That's the whole point of it. And you so graciously endorsed At Ease, and in your endorsement of At Ease, you talked about the empowerment piece of this.
Yeah.
So many feel disempowered by the experience of transition.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's the playbook, right? At Ease is to help. I feel, my personal opinion is that, and I've had a lot of talks with a lot of my friends that are always in transition.
Yes.
We go back to the age and stage where we decided to join the military. Typically, for most people, it's somewhere in their late teens, early 20s, and your life went on a cool different path. And it's always a part of your identity. And then you go into, at some point, you become a civilian again. And as we know, the military does not do a good job of helping people make the transition. When I went through that, they gave me a 3-day course, a 3-day course on basically what to wear and how to write a resume. And I know one of your big punchlines is it's not about resume writing. This is not about resume writing, everybody.
Correct.
But like, I think a 3-day course, and it was ridiculous. And I mean, for 10 years, they taught me, you know, it taught me so many wonderful things in the military, but it was all about that culture that I was part of it. And then you can't unwind that in 3 days. So I feel like transition's always a part of the process. And for those military veterans that are just like me, 20 years out and running a business and having, you know, this is still a valid book. I got a good one for you though. I'm like, what about the people, veterans who are like, maybe like me back in the day, younger me, way younger, way younger. Say like, oh man, that's way too touchy feely for me. I got this. You know, I got this. Like, I don't need a self-awareness course. I know how I land with people. What do you know, how would you encourage them, or just open the open their eyes and around that.
I can give it right back to you.
Yeah, go ahead. Like,
Let me lay it. You want me to lay it on you?
Yeah, let's play that out. I'll be Mr. Or Miss, like, I got this, and you
All
can
right.
say, all right. And by the way, folks, if you don't get what I'm saying, is I was kind of that guy, and I realized I could have used Emily. So hey,
you're asking for a friend. You're not asking for a friend. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not asking for a friend here. This was me back in the day. So hey, it's all good, but I'm busy. I'm writing my resumes. I'm on LinkedIn. I got this. I'm transitioned. I got out last month. I'm good.
Good for you, man. Awesome. Good stuff. Yeah. So what's interesting about where you're at in this process is, everybody who's looking for a job is doing those things you're doing. So you're in good company. And everybody who's applying for the jobs you're applying for, they have the same skills as you, John. Your skills aren't unique.
How can they? I'm a stud.
Well, I know, I can see that. I can see it on the sign right behind you.
Sorry,
I've been looking at it for 20 minutes. Just kidding.
So I throw that back to you and say, no, there's no way that anybody has the skills that I have.
Yeah.
I mean,
they don't. People may not have the skill, the context. So mechanics working on big machinery and trucks, they haven't done it in the military, but they've done the job. So thinking in terms of the jobs you are going to be applying for, you're going to be going up against people who have very, very similar skills, if not the same skills, just in a different organizational context. So,
right.
So then you have to ask yourself, John, how are you going to differentiate yourself from all those people? The differentiator is you. It's you.
Now, what if I just talk about my military experience? Isn't that a differentiator?
Nobody cares. Nobody understands what you're talking about. I mean, I wouldn't say that. No, I wouldn't say that.
No, but you said it. I love it that you said it, because it's important to say that. Like, yeah, it's cool that you did all this stuff. And I'm going to pull myself out of the role play here for a second. But like, what I tell people is, like, how does it translate? How do you can differentiate yourself by showing how it translates to where you're going. And the big disconnect is you don't know how that translates yet, right? Because you haven't been a part of that culture yet.
Yeah.
If you've never bounced a basketball, good luck making your first shot. Good luck on that. Yeah.
Exactly. And so the whole thing is, if your skills don't differentiate you and set you apart from the competition for jobs, what does? Well, it's not about what you did, it's about who you are, and it's about how you are. And if you don't know that and you can't speak to it, then you aren't differentiated from the competition. But if you have self-awareness, you can speak to who you are. That is totally uniquely you. The way that you think through a problem, the way that you bring order to chaos.
Preach it, sister. Preach it. This is so good. And this is what I like to help people when I'm trying to help veterans transition it is about who you are.
Yes.
Not what you did. And get in touch with who you are.
Yes.
Like, really, like, I often tell veterans, don't go and, if you had a, military job that was fixing, fixing airplanes, or, you're a mechanic, great, fantastic. But you got burned out in that in the military and you just don't want to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. Well, don't go apply for a mechanic job.
Right.
There's more to you than that. You learn a lot of great skills. You probably have some leadership skills that you've learned because you were in charge of, like, a group of people and done all these cool things. Go find what you want to do, not do what you can do, because you can do more than you think you can do, right? It's not just applying that one piece of your resume, that everything has to translate directly into where you want to go, because the world is way more wide open. I also tell them that your world is this small when you're getting out of the military. Like, you see only this much, and you have a way wide. There's so much out there. You're only encumbered by the amount of exposure that you've had to all the different jobs that are out there.
Well, and there's another side to that too. What you just said is a lot of time, because there's a lot of talk about translating. How do you translate your resume and all that?
Right.
There are a lot of things that military folks don't even think of as skills or experiences, because it wasn't their MOS, their occupational specialty. It was just part of what they were supposed to do, like training or arranging for training, HR stuff, but those are things that your peers, when you're coming out of service, if you come out after 4, 8, 10 years, the people who are your peers in the civilian world probably you've never done any of that stuff. And you did it just as part of everyday life. It wasn't even your job. It was just what you had to do.
Right. I'd like to also think and pull on all the soft skills that you develop in the military. The part of that culture, the culture of any military force is about showing up on time, looking professional, being accountable, owning your mistakes, doing all those things. If you gave me 5 people that had all 5 of those things that I just mentioned, I think we could change the world, right? And in the civilian world, it isn't as prevalent. At least I've found. There's a lot of there's a lot less of that than you're going to find from a military veteran, right?
100%.
That was trained and taught. I'm not saying that that veterans or civilians, like, the differences in character. It's different. The differences in training.
Yes.
What you're trained to do, how you think about things, and how you process things is different, and in a very, very, very good way. A lot of small business owner friends that I have are, when I ask them about their employees, they typically can get frustrated very quickly into the conversation around just getting people to show up and do their jobs and be accountable to them. That's table stakes at the very minimum in the military.
Well, you just touched on something really, a whole other conversation, which is what are the challenges that the veterans encounter when they come into civilian organizations. There are many, and one of them is they don't see the same kind of expected standard of professionalism.
Yeah.
And it comes across as, this place has no values. You say you have values, they're up there on the wall on a chart. I don't see any values. 5 o'clock, everybody's out of here. Job's not done.
Yeah. It reminds me, I was like, I was in such an accountable role. And that was pretty, I was in the SEAL teams. I was an officer, had my own platoon, ran operations towards the end of my career. I did all kinds of cool stuff. So I was a pretty high, not really high level, but, significant. I've been in for a little while. And then I took my first civilian job. And I remember, I was in a sales job at Solomon Smith Barney in Baltimore. And my manager basically gave me free reign and care. I was now there to hit a sales quota, So I'm getting ready to go to lunch on my second day, and I walked into my boss's office, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to lunch." And it was he had 30 people like me at work from him. He's like, "I don't care." I was like, I have zero care of what you're doing with your day.
Right.
However, in my previous world, it was so different. So the accountability was so high that if I'm going to go out for lunch, it's hey, I'm going to be gone for 46 minutes. I'll be back, and we'll hit all these things when I get back. Zero of that in my new job. Not all jobs are like that, but I was ooh, I'm part of a whole different culture that I got to get used to.
Yeah.
Very, very different.
And there's no guidebook to that level, because there's so many assumptions that everybody's bringing into the employer's bringing all these assumptions, the veterans bringing all kinds of assumptions, and my role in this whole thing is to be the translator. That's what people have always said, that is what I am, as a translator of culture. But organizations need to really step up their ability to translate their own culture.
Yeah.
Articulate it.
How would you, do you have any rough, off the cuff recommendations for organizations to help them step it up?
Yeah. Honestly, the first thing I would do is, if you're a big company, really engage with your ERG, your Employee Resource Group for military or veterans, and initiate a dialogue where the folks in HR and training, and if possible, line managers, are having a conversation about, hey, we use this word teamwork. Here's what that looks like to me. What did it look like to you in the military? And start to have a dialogue about this, so everybody is learning. This is what one of that first study I told you about for the consulting firm.
Yeah.
I ended up developing probably I'm sure it was the first ever military transition course in around 2001. It was like a long time ago. And after I developed that, I realized, well, wait a minute, there's most of the employees here aren't military, but they're serving the military and they don't know anything about the military. So then I built a military 101 course for the civilians. So they didn't, show up in front of at a base in a town car.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I answered you. Oh, so that's one thing. But another thing that companies of all sizes should do is just recognize, when you're hiring from the military and you have the potential to have just a tremendous asset for all the reasons that we were just talking about and that you mentioned, John. But like any investment, you've got to protect your investment, and it doesn't take a lot to protect that investment. It's called recognize their onboarding needs to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Leverage the heck out of your ERG to help with, resume screenings, initial screening, interviews, and then lining people up, connecting new hires up with that ERG as soon as possible.
Yeah, I like it. Some tactical, actionable things that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, talk to me a little bit about at ease. There's always a story behind the story. Like you road field tested, and you have a very cool, busy life. You work with Team Performance Institute. You're one of our best coaches we got going, rocking and rolling. And what spurred this for you? How did this start? And what's the story behind it?
It's so stupid in some ways. It's not stupid, but so basically Field Test was published by a big publisher, and everybody, including all the PR folks, said this is evergreen, meaning it will always be relevant. This book will never go out of print.
Yeah.
Okay. So a few years ago, they sold that whole line of business books to some other publisher who immediately took it out of print. And it took me 2 years, no joke, 2 years to get the rights back to that.
You went from evergreen to dead on the vine.
You got that right. We didn't even keep the vine.
You didn't even get it sucks. Oh man.
Yeah. So and then they were like, but it's going to take us 2 years to let you have it back. So so I finally got the rights 2 years later. And then I was faced with, okay, what do I do now? Do I just let it go ahead and die away? But I knew, because it was only a couple years ago that I built a veteran integration program for a massive consulting firm, and it was very much needed at the JMO, junior military officer, and below level. Yeah. And so I knew that the issues are still there. Yeah. So I thought, all right, well, I'm just going to re-release it. If it really is evergreen, then it shouldn't need much rewriting. Sure. I'm just going to re-release it. I sat down and I read it, and I was like, oh, hell no.
Uh-oh. Remix.
I was like, okay, first of all, a lot of the resources that are in the back of the book are totally dated and gone. Yeah. I have no idea if they even still exist. So that's got to go. And I've always heard fiction writers say this, and I've always called bullshit on it when they say, well, all of a sudden, what I was writing, just other voices came forward and it turned into a book I didn't even really realize I was going to write. I'm like, what is that? But all of a sudden, man, it was happening. I was like, this is like a totally different book. This is not because we started we were calling it Field Tested too. And then I was like, it can't be called that anymore. It isn't that. This is really like me talking to veterans and also to employers. And what I really want, John, my greatest hope is that everybody who reads it reads the whole thing. Don't just read the part that seems like it applies to you. Because by reading the other stuff, like if you're a veteran, if there's certain chapters that seem like they're like really more about the employer, that's where the intel is. That's where you find out, holy crap, this is what they're doing for veterans, or like, this is what they think. So, and it's the same way. It's employers, you need to read those parts, because the book is, I mean, largely based on, hundreds of interviews that I've done over the years. And so it's full of quotes and advice from veterans. And so you don't trust me, listen to them,
Yeah. Well, what a difference. So you say, like, you're the translator, right? And what a difference from when you started this, when they're like, well, why should we listen to you? Well, maybe my master's in applied behavioral science. However, now you not only have science, but you have experience, you have data, you have hundreds of veterans that you've, interviewed, and multiple organizations that you've worked with to help make that transition. So this is that is a translation, right, for both sides. Yes. I love that idea. Yeah. All right. This has been awesome. I don't want to say goodbye, but I want to wrap it up for everybody. I try to keep these podcasts around 30 minutes. First of all, thank you for everybody tuning in to this. If you're listening to this, then you're probably in some way, shape, or form, or either a veteran looking to make a better transition for yourself, and God bless you for your service, and thank you for that. We all serve in different ways, and Emily certainly serves in a really great way to help veterans make the transition from military. And if you're listening to this and you're part of an organization or a corporation trying to figure out how do we do this better, then thank you, because we need you. We desperately need you to take what was back in the World War II era of all these great veterans coming back, and there were just like so many there making the transitions back. And it was a very patriotic time in our country, to right now, a very different time where we're really seeking to have people sign up for the military, people to get into the military based on what we've had over the past 20 years in this country. That's a bit of a pull, and it's hard, and it's a tough reality, and there's a lot of unknown out there, and we need them more than ever. And I'm speaking out of not only my personal experience, but my two sons have joined the military. My only two sons have joined the military. So I'm really hoping that you can help them 10, 15, 20 years from now make that transition. And Emily, I'm a heartfelt, huge welcome to the show, but also a huge thank you for dedicating a good 2 decades of your life, from 2004 till now, 2 decades of your life to helping with this great cause.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and I do it all again, which is exactly what veterans say to me when I thank them for their service, even if they've sacrificed terribly. I want to thank you, John, for, of course, your service, for inviting me onto this platform, and most of all, you've just been incredibly generous and gracious and helpful throughout this process, and I can't thank you enough.
Oh man, Emily, we're family, and an honor to be on your team. Let's do the necessary plugs that we need to put out there for everybody listening now to say, well, then how do we get a hold of Eddie's, and how do we get a hold of Emily? And what if when I want to hire this, I want to get the program, I want to get the accelerated military transition, help us find you, help us put all that out. I'm really asking you, where do we find you online? Where do we connect to you?
Thank you. So, online, you can go to military.grandinetta.com. And the book will
spell that out, though. It's Grand.
So I have to do it in a certain cadence, or I get lost and I have to start over. Grandinetta.
There you go.
I've only had it 8 years, and so I'm still practicing. Grandinetta.
You got it.
Military.grandinetta.com. The book will be available everywhere: Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's also going to be released in ebook, so Kindle, and there may be a audio book at some point, but we're not there yet. If
you want me to read the book in my sexy voice, I can try.
Yeah, that would be marvelous.
That would be ridiculous.
put a pin in that. We're going to.
I read at a third grade level, so I'm not going to be able to pronounce any of your.
It's written at a third grade level.
It is not. It is not.
I know. So the book and the course are launching on Veterans Day. Intentionally. I'm so excited about that. And we're having a virtual launch party. And I would love to send you an invitation. Everybody is welcome. If you know anybody who needs or would want these resources, I really would welcome them into this call. It's going to be fun. But I need to know who you are so I can send you the link. And at that point, it all becomes available. So November 11th, 7:00 p.m. Eastern is when the launch party is. And one of our preliminary goals is to sell as many books as possible between 7 p.m. on the 11th and 7 p.m. on the 12th, so we can affect the Amazon algorithm. That's what I'm told.
Oh yeah,
so
that's great.
Honestly,
how do I get an invite? So you do I email you for an invite? How do you find me if I'm trying to invite to that party?
You can reach me through LinkedIn, Emily Grandinetta. You can send me an email. If it's okay, John, to send to your address, emily@teamperformanceinstitute.com.
Absolutely.
My home. That's my family home, because when you work on your own as a coach and a writer and all that, you got no family. This is my family.
Amen.
Emily@teamperformanceinstitute.com would be the best way to reach me, and then I'll just send you the link.
Beautiful. Well, we'll be at the launch party. Everybody from TPI, I know that will be at the launch party.
I hope so. I hope you're wearing your gear, folks, so I can call you out.
We're all about the party. Emily, thank you again. Thanks for the time. Thanks for the 2 decades of dedication to a cause that is just hits home. So, for me and so many other families out there and organizations. Appreciate your time going through your new book. And man, I hope it's top of the leaderboard on Amazon. Let's get some books sold. And thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you.